So when we were walking down, we walked down, we were actually a little up here. Wait, hold on. We were looking down at a parking lot, which was right around here. Everybody with me? So this photograph is taken from that direction, looking back here. It's like we're in a helicopter looking up in that direction. Everybody with me? So if all of this was peeled off, if all those houses that we saw beyond the parking lot were peeled off, all the houses here, this is what would be seen. Okay, and this is the Jerusalem that existed at the time of David and Solomon. When David had it, there was no temple up here, but only a temporary sanctuary. And then Solomon actually built the temple. So this is Mount Moriah. This is where the Temple Mount now is. But the Temple Mount, which is a stone box dropped around the hill, did not exist. Now, all of this is covered by Herod's platform. But of course, at that time, this is 1,000 years before that Temple Mount. Four histories of the United States between this temple and that temple. A little hard to get your mind around it. And this is where the original Jerusalem was. And here is thought to be where David's palace was originally built, which we're going to see right over there. Right where the platform we were standing is above the building being excavated, which has been tentatively identified as the Palace of David, based on the size of the stones, the size of the rooms, and the luxury, the ornateness of the decorations in the time of the decorations. The Bible literally comes alive right here. There are so many stories that look like they are movie scripts coming out of this area. And I would just like to discuss two of them, both of them having to do with David. I want to do this real succinctly so that we will get into the tunnel on time. One comes from the second book of Samuel, when David is king and he's an old man. It's 2 Samuel 16, I believe, 15 or 16, and 15. And David is an old man and he's trembling in his boots, trembling in his sandals, running from his son Absalom. Anybody remember this? Yep. Absalom, the rebellious son, who is known for his hairdo. And Absalom wants to take over the throne of his father. And we read, and David said unto all his servants that were with him at Jerusalem, this is verse 14, chapter 15. Okay. Arise and let us flee, for else we shall not escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly, and bring evil upon us, and smite the city with the edge of the sword. This great warrior is scared. And the king's servants say that they will go with the king. I'm going to paraphrase this to keep it very short. And we're going to, and the king's helper, Ittai, promises loyalty to the king. And we're going to move on a little to verse 21. And Ittai answered the king and said, As the Lord liveth, as my lord the king liveth, surely in what place my lord the king shall be, whether in death or life, even there also will thy servant be. And David said to Ittai, Go and pass over. What does that mean? Go and pass over what? And Ittai the Gittite passed over, and all his men and all the little ones that were with him. And all the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people passed over. The king also himself passed over. Passed over what? Now we see the answer. Passed over the brook Kidron. And all the people passed over toward the way of the wilderness. That is a description of what we're looking at. This is the Kidron. If you go to the top of that hill and look east, you will be looking into the desert, going down to the Dead Sea, the wilderness. And lo, Zadok also and all the Levites were with him, bearing the Ark of the Covenant of God, the Ark of the Covenant that sat in that temporary sanctuary up there. And they set down the ark of the God, and Abiathar went up until all the people had done passing out of the city. And the king said unto Zadok, carry back the ark of the God into the city. If I shall find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me again and show me both it and his habitation. But if he thus say, I have no delight in thee, behold, here I am, let him do with me as seems good to him. So Zadok the priest goes back, and we move forward to verse 30. And David went up by the ascent of the Mount of Olives, and wept as he went up, and had his head covered, and he went barefoot, and all the people that were with him covered every man his head, and they went up weeping as they went. And we can see it right here. The palace of David is right there. We're going to see it when we go down the stairs. The palace of David is right there. The brook of Kidron, the spring, is right under one of these buildings. This is where the water flows down in the winter. David crosses over, climbs up, probably by a little saddle to make it easier on himself, climbs up the hill to the top of the Mount of Olives, which is this entire ridge, not just one spot. Sees the priest taking the Ark of the Covenant, which was on top of that hill, sees him walking, and shouts to him, go back, bring it back. It doesn't come with me. If God wants me to see it again, he will let me, and if not, so be it. And he keeps going up the hill, down to the other side to the way of the wilderness. This is it. This does not get more specific right here. And as we talk about the palace of David, it brings to mind another story. And this one I'll just paraphrase. You know it very well. The story of Bathsheba. David is looking out over the roof from his palace, and all down here are the houses. And he sees this beautiful woman bathing on the roof. What she's doing bathing on the roof in front of the king is a matter of biblical interpretation. But it sure fits the geography.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
But listen to what happens, because that is a very, very important story for a lot of reasons. Let's do it real quick. 1, 2, 3. What happens? David brings her to the palace, sleeps with her. By gosh, she gets pregnant. Oops. He tries to hide it by giving her husband, who is one of his officers in the army, a little R&R to come home and be with his wife. But this officer is embarrassingly moral. He says, my men are out there in the field. I can't do it. I morally can't do it. And David says, no, really, I want you to, you're a good guy. Go spend some time with your wife. No, I can't. David says, go spend some time with your wife. Uriah the Hittite refuses to. David gets him drunk. And Uriah drunk is more moral than David sober. He still won't do it until David says, okay, we'll play hardball. And he sends him back to the line carrying his own death warrant.
Yeah.
An ambush to be set out there and left alone so he'll be sure to be killed. You know what? Big deal. So what? That's what kings all around the ancient world did. But what happens next is what's special. Number 1, the prophet Nathan looks him in the face and challenges the great king and says, you were wrong. He dresses it up in this allegory, this big moral about the poor man and the rich man and the sheep, but basically he says, you, the king, are wrong. You are subject to the moral law of, remember the tablets that are sitting up there in that hill? Hello? You're wrong. Number 2, Nathan walks away with his head on his shoulders. This is revolutionary in that world. Number 3, the king admits a mistake. Where does that happen? And number 4, it's written down. It's written down. And so what we see in that story is that what's important here in Jerusalem is not the stones, but what happened between the stones. And what happened between the stones sets it apart from every other kingdom contemporary with it. Not that people are better, but that they have a code to live by. A code that says every individual, including the king, is responsible to this moral code of right and wrong. And the king is not divine. The king is all too human. And we don't even pretend to make him divine. And that is happening right around here in the city that was here. Let's take a look down.